So, if you have ever been in a relationship where you have struggled and questioned if that's something you should continue, this podcast is for you. What I've learned in working with so many people, whether it's individually in my practice or as a couple, is that relationships cause a lot of stress. And although there's nothing wrong with that, and that's just a part of life, it's really important as you navigate your relationships to figure out if the stress is just a daily stressor or an every so often stressor versus a stressor that is completely disrupting your peace and your sanity. More than anything, what we want is our relationship to bring more support, more peace, more understanding than the opposite, which is the chaos and the anxiety and the emotional exhaustion. And although, again, we all go through our ups and downs in relationships, the first question that you should really ask yourself is, what do I have more of? Do you have more of the peace and the support and the positivity in your relationship? Or do you have more of the negative, drained toxicity, constant fighting or arguing, whatever it might be? Is that more of your daily interaction with that person? So another thing you want to pay attention to is your body. I've talked several times about how our mind and body are very closely connected. So a lot of times when we're feeling emotional stress, our body then is going to react as well. Some of the symptoms that you might look for are an increase in anxiety, so just a general worry on a day-to-day basis, even if you're not anxiety prone. An increase in some depressive symptoms, so maybe sleeping too much, sleeping too little, loss of motivation or energy to want to do things that you would normally do. You also want to pay attention to the feeling of like walking on eggshells around your partner, things like that. Feeling like the overall joy and the pleasure that you got out of being in the relationship is no longer being seen, at least to the degree that it was. If that is consistent for you, that is another big warning sign. What I encourage my couples or my individuals to really ask themselves is, are you becoming better in this relationship? Do you feel like the other person in your relationship is pushing you to grow, that they're pushing you to be better versions of yourself? That is really important to know. We can go through ups and downs in relationships, but we want to push each other to be the best versions of one another, right? So is that person pulling you back and holding you down, or are they pushing you forward and encouraging you to be better? Another thing that I always ask my couples that have been in a relationship for a while and aren't really sure and they're teetering on how to move forward is, if nothing else changes from this point on in your relationship, nothing changes, are you okay with it? Are you okay staying in the relationship as it is today? If the answer to that is no, then something really has to change. And a lot of times what I see is that people will stay in relationships for fear of, or because they're hoping for. And so what we want to really narrow down is, why are we staying? Are we staying because I'm afraid I won't find anybody else? Are we staying because I'm just afraid of being alone? Are you staying because you're holding on to past versions of that person that maybe were good, or hope that maybe that's what you can get back to? It is important to be very clear about what it is that has kept you in a relationship that even has you questioning whether you stay or go. One of the other things that's really important is to think about what that relationship is costing you emotionally. How is it affecting your day in, day out? Are you feeling, for the most part, more positive or peaceful on a day-to-day basis in that relationship? Or do you notice that the majority of your days are draining and exhausting, and that you're doing the emotional roller coaster every day with that person? This is really important to keep track of, because we are creatures of habit. And just because your relationship might be going up and down and cause you a lot of stress does not mean that other person is a bad person. They just might not be the right person for you. But we do have to sometimes take a step back and look at our relationship from an outsider's perspective. What would you tell somebody that was in your shoes? Would you tell them to keep fighting for it? Would you tell them to keep going? It is pretty common that a lot of us will say, I would be like, get out of that. That's stupid. That's ridiculous. Why are you staying? And when love is involved, real, true love, that is easier said than done. But it can be helpful as you're thinking about your own relationship, stepping out, looking at it from a third-party perspective. Am I overreacting, or would other people see this and think, yeah, it doesn't seem like it's a good fit for you? In a healthy relationship, communication is key. So one of the things you definitely want to focus on is what the communication looks like between you and your partner. Is it healthy back and forth? Can you manage conflict? Okay. Do you take breaks when you need it? Do you respect each other's boundaries? And do you take accountability for whatever it is that you have struggled with? Those are really, really, really important in relationships long term. Without healthy communication, relationships, no matter what, they fall apart. So that is a vital part of any healthy relationship. And if it is a relationship that you feel like you do want to fight for, then having a third party like a therapist come in and help teach you healthier ways of communicating is going to be really important. That is not a hard thing to teach. It might be a hard thing to learn to do, but it's not a hard thing to be taught. And so every therapist should be able to help you with that and navigate the challenges that you have in your relationship that are causing conflict. Lastly, you need to feel safe with that person. And I don't mean just physically safe, which I do mean physically safe, obviously, but emotionally safe. What does that mean? That means that I am not afraid to go to them with my problems. I am not afraid to sit down and have a serious conversation. I am not afraid that if I say X, that they're going to respond in a really bad way, that's going to become aggressive, that's going to blow up, that's going to be defensive. You need to feel, both of you, as if you can approach each other and have a healthy conversation around any issue that comes up. If you don't have that, you're signing yourself up for a lifelong history of fighting, getting defensive. And that's just in our nature. Again, doesn't make you a terrible person, but we have to work really hard when someone comes to us with challenges that they're having to not get defensive. I struggle with that for sure. So that is something that we all have to work on, but together in the couple, you want to see your partner making improvements just like you are. And that is another thing that I always tell my clients. If you're debating on whether to stay or go, look at your partner. Are they making changes? Even if they're the slightest bit that you notice, like, okay, they knew I didn't like that. They might not be perfect on that, but they are making changes. I've seen it. That means they're able to change, that they're willing to work on it. We are not new people overnight. It takes time. But if you see a partner who is willing to invest in themselves for you, for that relationship, by improving upon the things that maybe they struggle with or that you struggle with in regards to them, that is someone that you want to keep by your side. Lastly, just remember this. Unfortunately, love is not enough to keep relationships sound and secure and safe. You have to have the ability to work together to address any issues that come up together as a team. You can love someone wholeheartedly, but also have to let them go because they are not meeting your needs or they're not willing to work on the things that you feel like are issues in your relationship, or vice versa. A relationship should never require you to sacrifice your own mental and emotional health for the sake of that relationship. So this is a check-in for you independently and individually on how you would really measure that relationship and how you are managing yourself in that relationship. We can look at our partner and see if there's possibility for growth, but ultimately, how do we feel in this moment, in this relationship? And is it something that is helping us be better, or is it tearing us apart inside? You should never have to choose between loving someone and protecting your peace. If you're ever in a relationship where you feel like you are constantly abandoning your own needs, your own wants, your own desires for the sake of that other person, and there isn't a good give and take, that relationship is not for you. And this is important information to take into account. If this is something that you relate to or you feel like has been helpful for you, please feel free to share it with other people. Subscribe to my podcast and stick in there for future podcasts coming on the subject.